Our story begins a century ago, when a massive earthquake triggered a global phenomenon known as ancestral regression. Plants, animals, and even humans were all swept up in this cataclysmic change. They began to regain the traits of their ancestors, and the more times one regressed, the more ancient and powerful those ancestors became. While everyone else wondered which ancestor they might become, our protagonist made a startling discovery. He realized he could actually choose his own regression target for the very first time. While others awakened as common warriors, he chose the era of the 5 clouds, manifesting a truly vengeful aura. Having mastered the power of regression, he decided to embrace the legendary spirit of that ancient age. He took on the mantle of Zhang Sanfeng, mastering the internal martial arts and the Taiji sword. It was a performance that shocked the world, and just when everyone thought he had reached his limit, he began his second regression, then a third, continuing all the way until his 9th. For his final transformation, he chose to become the first saint of heaven and earth, the Taoist ancestor, Hongjun. We must remember that genes are the very foundation of a person, and within the human genome, there are over 3 billion DNA base pairs. However, the sequences capable of producing protein coding genes only account for a mere 1.5% of the total length. As for the remaining 98%, if those sequences were to be activated, an individual would begin to express the traits of their ancestors, a phenomenon we formally refer to as ancestral regression. And now, the time for the regression test has finally arrived. Ever since that great earthquake a century ago, the world's creatures have mutated, forcing humanity to master ancient sword styles to survive the onslaught. Every year, a group of 18-year-olds is selected for the regression test, and our young protagonist wonders if he will be among them. During the dawn of this era, humanity very nearly faced total extinction. Fortunately, the regressors stepped forward to face the chaos. They stood their ground when it mattered most. They took up the heavy burden of preserving civilization, saving billions of lives from the brink of destruction. Generation after generation, these brave predecessors used their own bodies as shields, fighting against ferocious beasts to protect their kin. And now, it seems, it is finally your turn. The commander calls out for all only children to stand up. He then asks those whose parents or siblings serve in the city defense force to stand as well. To those standing, he announces that the city of Yancheng does not require their protection just yet. And so, they are dismissed. To be honest, it is a rare moment of mercy in such a harsh world. As for the rest, the time has come to face their very first regression. The process is notoriously agonizing. Some, unfortunately, will find the burden too much to bear. There are those who will simply perish under the sheer physical impact of the regression. But as the saying goes, one who wishes to wear the crown must bear its weight. With a heavy silence, the commander simply wishes them all good luck. We should note that while one can undergo multiple regressions, every future path is dictated by the very first one. Yet, the process is entirely uncontrollable. One might become a poet, a scholar, an official, or a noble swordsman. Any identity is possible. Deep down, he couldn't help but wish he could choose his own destiny. Suddenly, breathing becomes difficult. He realizes that if this continues, he won't be able to hold on much longer. He tells himself not to give up. He feels as though he can no longer breathe, the air itself becoming a heavy, suffocating weight. Observing his struggle, the staff notes his constitution is far too weak and suggests notifying his family. He tells himself this can't be happening, even as his entire body feels like it is being consumed by fire. A terrifying thought crosses his mind. Is this truly how it all ends for him? Suddenly, visions begin to flicker before his eyes. Is that Wang Feihong? He wonders if his ancestor is truly the legendary Wang Feihong. But no, that isn't quite right. There are others appearing now, a gallery of legends emerging from the depths of history. He sees Zheng Guofan, Qi Jiguang, Chen Wangting, and even the great Yu Fei passing through his mind. And then, he sees a figure that leaves him utterly stunned. It is Zhang Sanfeng, the last great Qi practitioner of the martial arts era, a man who surpassed his own time through sheer strength. He was the first man of that era to break all the rules. A true pioneer, to be honest. A prompt appears, asking if he wishes to select Zhang Sanfeng as his regression target. He realizes with a shock that he has awakened his system, an advantage he never expected to possess. The ability to actively choose his own ancestor is now within his grasp, and he doesn't hesitate. Without a second thought, he confirms his choice. He will regress as Zhang Sanfeng. Meanwhile, a voice asks Captain Liu how many of these students will actually succeed in their regression. Liu estimates there might be 30, though he knows that quantity matters very little in the end. The real question is how many will possess true martial strength, something their city of Yangqing desperately needs. It has, after all, been several years since a true martial arts master has emerged from their ranks. But then, someone points out to Captain Liu that one of the candidates is already waking up. The staff member approaches the first student, offering a polite but somewhat repetitive greeting. The greetings continue as the official prepares to record the results of the regression. He asks the young man to identify the ancestor he has successfully connected with. The answer comes back, Gu Shuiyan, a merchant, as it turns out. In this harsh new era, we see that the vast majority of resources are controlled by the city. The city lord's mansion handles all distribution, leaving a merchant with very little room to maneuver. Next is Zhu Shihua, whose ancestor was a mere performer, hardly the warrior they were hoping for. A merchant might be useful in a time of peace, but in a world of chaos, his skills are misplaced. This era demands strength, and so far, it seems not a single useful soul has emerged. Then we turn to Mi Shiueching, whose ancestor is revealed to be the great General Suda. The officials are pleased. Suda is a name that carries significant weight. As a founding general of the Ming, he was a master of strategy with formidable personal strength. Among martial artists, such a figure is only slightly below the rank of a true master. Suddenly, energy begins to radiate outward. Could this be the mark of a master-level martial artist? But wait, something is wrong. This isn't a master at all. The staff begins to panic, shouting for everyone to run. An omen of lightning appears, a phenomenon reserved only for grandmasters, and this lightning is a deep, vibrant purple. Among the 7 colors of lightning, purple is the most supreme. The staff looks at the student, stunned. Even when a martial artist reaches the grandmaster rank, they are usually accompanied only by pale violet sparks. In the entire history of the 9 provinces, there has never been a regression quite like this one. With purple lightning surging around him, the question remains, just who has this boy awakened? The boy apologizes, admitting he hasn't quite mastered his inner power yet, while the official asks which ancestor he has awakened. Zhang Sanfeng. He replies, a name from the final years of the Song dynasty. In those days, the spiritual energy of the world had grown thin, marking the end of the era of Qi and the start of the martial arts age. But even in that era, Zhang Sanfeng stood alone, a man of such extraordinary talent that he defied the very rules of his time. By using the methods of alchemy to achieve the Tao, he managed to break through the limitations imposed by the world itself. He became the last true Qi master, a figure who dominated the 9 provinces for an entire millennium. And now, we see this young man, named Li Xiang, standing before us. To everyone's disbelief, he has actually succeeded in awakening the legendary Zhang Sanfeng. Liu Yong, from the Northern Huangshu 2nd Battalion, quickly reports that a Grandmaster-level martial artist has just awakened at the high school. Yes, he confirms it, there is no mistake. It is a Grandmaster-level regression, and the target is truly him. According to the school's ranking system, each stage of regression is divided into specific tiers. Li Xiang had assumed his power would land somewhere between the 3rd and 4th rank. However, it seems he reached the 2nd rank instead. Clearly, he had underestimated the sheer weight of his ancestor's legacy. Suddenly, a strange presence appears. We have to wonder, just what kind of creature is this? The warning goes out immediately, stay back, and do not get close to it. The realization hits them like a physical blow. It is indeed the Blood Covenant, a curse they had hoped to avoid. The guards shout that the creature cannot be killed easily, urging everyone to cover the students as they flee the scene. Records describe these Blood Covenant beasts as monsters whose strength and ferocity far exceed any ordinary threat. They are several times more dangerous than typical beasts, possessing both a lethal toxicity and an incredible ability to heal their wounds. Without overwhelming force, it is truly impossible to put down a first-tier beast of the Blood Covenant. Something is wrong. Every time a Blood Covenant beast sheds its skin, it consumes a massive amount of energy. Yet, since the moment it hatched, it hasn't had a single chance to feed. We have to wonder where that power is coming from. Unless, Lu Zhengxiao? He is at the West Gate. 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 Lu Zhengxiao is at the West Gate, and he is absorbing the residual energy. These remnants of red essence are more than enough for this beast to undergo a 2nd ancestral regression. We simply cannot let it continue feeding like this. The team urges their captain to move quickly, knowing they can't afford any more delays. If they wait any longer, this beast will reach its 2nd stage. If that happens, no one in the entire Yangqing No. 2 middle school will be able to escape. Though he practices deep cultivation for the benefit of others, it perfectly aligns with Zhang Sanfeng's Taoist philosophy, increasing his harmony by 20%. He prepares the internal fist, the 10-section brocade. To be honest, the hide on this beast is proving to be incredibly tough. He strikes again, a 2nd punch, then a 3rd, refusing to back down. He shouts for everyone to clear the way as he unleashes the full power of the internal fist's 10-section brocade. Each punch is divided into a segment, totaling 10 strikes. The strength of every blow is built upon the foundation of the one before it, doubling the power each time. His first punch only carries about 50 kilograms of force, but as the segments stack, by the time he reaches the 10th punch, he is looking at a staggering 25,600 kilograms of force. He calls the beast out, knowing this single strike carries over 25 tons of weight. Can it actually withstand the 10-section brocade? And then comes the 10th punch, the final, devastating blow. It's dead. The relief is palpable as the beast finally falls, though some wonder if this is all just some sort of joke. After all, Lu Zhengxiao couldn't do a thing against that monster, yet Li Xiang managed to kill it outright. The students can't help themselves. They start cheering, shouting that Li Xiang is absolutely incredible. This time, he truly saved everyone's lives. But as we see, the nature of the covenant is never quite that simple. The phrase, sharing the same robe, comes to mind as we see the bond between these soldiers. Commander Su Zhihui arrives and immediately asks for Li Xiang, looking toward young Liu. He demands to know where the boy is, and Li Xiang steps forward to identify himself. Suddenly, a warning flashes. A mental intrusion has been detected. The system asks if it should counterattack. A mental intrusion? Li Xiang realizes this must be the power of the divine stone at work. He reasons that Commander Su wouldn't actually harm him, and exposing his secrets now would be quite inconvenient. He decides not to fight back. Su finds this interesting, noting the boy's surprising strength. Li Xiang managed to block Su from entering his consciousness while maintaining perfect control. If he advances further, he will surely become a pillar of the nation. He is, to be honest, a very promising talent. Su invites him to join the Northern City Defense Army, offering him a 100-man squad to lead. Another soldier grumbles, having worked in the defense department for nearly 8 years with nothing but blood and sweat. Even after all that time, he only has about 80 combatants under his command. To see a new recruit land a 100-man squad immediately is enough to make anyone feel a bit resentful. A new voice scoffs, calling Su Wenqing stingy for offering such a small reward. With so few men, she claims he is treating a hero like a common beggar. Lu Jingxiao wonders who this newcomer is, noticing that the commander's expression has suddenly soured. And who could blame him? This is Nie Zhuyin, the formidable captain of the Eastern Defense Zone. She is a rank 2, grade 3 awakened, known by the chilling nickname the Bamboo Leaf Green. In all of Yanqing, very few people would dare to provoke this woman. She speaks to the commander with total confidence before turning her gaze toward the young man. She asks with a smirk what the point of leading a mere 100-man squad even is. She invites him to come to her side, to Big Sister's side, as she playfully calls herself. She offers him the position of her personal deputy. A tempting offer, wouldn't you say? Commander Su snaps, asking Captain Nie what she means by this, as the boy belongs to the north. Nie Zhuyin simply retorts that the northern defense zone is being incredibly stingy. She argues that they shouldn't stop a talented young man from pursuing a much better choice. Another voice joins in, telling old Su that he really shouldn't be quite so shameless. We see that even if the boy was found in the north, there is no official rule stating that he is legally obligated to serve in the northern defense zone. They warn Su not to use his rank to pressure the boy. Yes, the pressure is certainly mounting. One commander tells the kid not to be afraid, promising to step in if Su tries anything. Su is furious, calling them a bunch of bastards for blatantly trying to steal his recruit. He asks who the shameless ones really are, but the others tell him not to be so dramatic. They point out that his offer of a 100-man squad was, to be honest, rather pathetic. The Southern Zone commander offers his special operations team. Just like that, the stakes rise. The Western commander goes further, promising the boy the rank of deputy commander after he retires. A deputy commander? The offer is almost absurd in its generosity, leaving everyone stunned. Li Xiang takes a moment to consider the chaos before finally speaking up to the group. He thanks the commanders for their kindness, but explains that his home is in the northern jurisdiction. Furthermore, his classmates intend to serve in the north as well, so he chooses to stay with them. He remains firm, stating that he still wants to join the Northern City Defense Force. Commander Su beams with pride, declaring that Li Xiang is truly a man of the north. He praises the boy for not becoming a white-eyed wolf just for a few shiny benefits. Suddenly, an alarm blares, detecting a medium-scale beast tide approaching the walls. The command goes out for all personnel to return to their combat positions immediately. Su curses the beasts, swearing he'll turn them into sieves before the day is done. He feels the weight of his uniform, knowing he'd be a disgrace if he let them pass. The momentum of the tide is massive, with tens of thousands of cursed creatures swarming in. Li Xiang realizes that while he can hold his own, his current power might struggle against Tier 2 beasts. Moreover, he has been dropped into this command role quite suddenly, without any prior notice. It is clear to us that the men in his new squad don't trust him one bit. One soldier sneers, telling him that if he's scared, he should find a place to hide. He warns the boy that the battlefield is no place for daydreaming and no one will protect him. Another soldier tries to play peacemaker, suggesting that their new captain might actually be dangerous. The first man, Old Li, scoffs, telling his comrade that he only recognizes him as the true deputy. Old Li declares that in all his life, he has never respected soft eggs who have no real skill. He despises those who use their backgrounds to treat this bloody battlefield like a playground for prestige. The deputy tries to apologize, explaining that Old Li simply doesn't know how to watch his mouth. Li Xiang remains calm, noting that he understands why people like him aren't exactly welcomed with open arms. He knows that without these soldiers, the people inside the walls would have no hope at all. He wonders how anyone could live in peace without these men, before telling them he needs to leave the wall's defense to them for a while. The soldiers are stunned, wondering if their new parachuted captain is so terrified that he can't even stand on the ramparts. One man mocks him, asking if he's truly too afraid to stay, while the deputy looks on in disbelief. Oldly scoffs, remarking that these high-ranking newcomers are always more useless than the last. He tells the others to let him go, since it makes no difference whether he's there or not, though he plans to report him once the battle ends. The deputy sighs, assuming Li Xiang is just here to put on a show for his resume before disappearing when things get dangerous. He tells the boy that while they don't care about his status, the men are watching, and a captain shouldn't abandon his post. Li Xiang looks back calmly and asks who exactly said anything about him running away. The soldiers are confused. He told them to hold the city while he left, which sounds like desertion to them. They ask what else it could possibly be, unless, and they say this with heavy irony, he plans to go down there and fight. To their absolute shock, he confirms that is exactly what he intends to do. He is heading down to the front lines. Yes, he is going to join the fray personally. To be honest, they didn't see that coming. At his current level, his martial arts have only awakened the physical form and internal energy of his techniques. He knows that Zhang Zhiren's true skills were forged in the heat of actual combat, not in a classroom. And so, for our young protagonist, standing behind a wall simply isn't enough. He realizes that active battle is the best opportunity he has to grow stronger. He unleashes the mountain-shaking palm, a move that carries the weight of his resolve. After slaying a Tier 1 blood python, a notification confirms his synchronization has increased to 37%. It seems his theory was correct. As long as he keeps fighting, his power will continue to align with his potential. With his current strength, Tier 1 beasts pose no threat at all, and he wonders what challenges await him next. And so, with a calm focus, Li Xiang decides it is time to truly begin the slaughter. With every strike, his synchronization increases, 1%, then another, and another. A nearby soldier thanks him breathlessly, admitting he would have been finished if the captain hadn't intervened. Li Xiang tells him there is no need for thanks, noting that the pressure on the defense seems to be easing slightly. The soldier admits that without that help, he would have been too overwhelmed to even hold his own ground. Nearby, others take notice, pointing toward the fray and wondering who this fierce warrior could possibly be. Watching a single man take on hundreds of beasts at once is, to be honest, a staggering sight. One soldier wonders if this is a veteran sent from the high command, but his comrade calls him blind. He points out that the man looks younger than any of them, so he couldn't possibly be an old veteran. They begin to speculate that he must be a core disciple from one of the great influential families. His prowess in this moment is easily comparable to that of a standard Tier 2 awakened warrior. The deputy watches in silence, wondering how someone so young can achieve such a height, until a realization hits him. He realizes with a start that it is him, the useless captain they had all doubted. Another notification appears. His synchronization has increased again, finally reaching the 50% mark. This milestone unlocks a new technique for him, the profound and fluid art of Tai Chi. Suddenly, a desperate cry for help rings out from the chaos of the battlefield. It seems strange to find a civilian in the middle of a beast swarm, but a young woman calls out to him. She begs for rescue, and Li Xiang tells her to stay still, promising he is coming for her immediately. He leaps into action, determined to save her from the encroaching monsters. She asks how he recognized her, but he scoffs. Even if she disguised herself as an awakened, he would know. Li Xiang scoffs, noting that any ordinary person found outside the city walls is immediately suspicious. He has no time for nonsense. He prepares to strike, but the woman sneers, telling him that his punch will be utterly useless against her. She claims that once caught in her creeping vines, no amount of physical strength will ever be enough to break free. She tells him to stop resisting and simply accept his fate as her next source of nourishment. But we see a shift in his stance as he recalls the essence of Tai Chi, where power is rooted in the feet and directed by the waist. It flows through the legs to the palms, as still as a mountain moon, yet as deep as a rushing river. This is the true art of Tai Chi, a technique that relies on fluid precision rather than raw, brute force. Li Xiang welcomes the challenge, thinking this is the perfect moment to test his new abilities. He decides to put his newly unlocked Tai Chi skills to the ultimate test against this strange foe. With a sudden, decisive movement, he brings the confrontation to a swift and crushing end. The creature hisses that it will remember him, promising they will meet again before vanishing into the earth. Li Xiang watches, puzzled by a monster that can regenerate, possesses immense strength, and can escape underground. He wonders what kind of demon this truly is, as it certainly doesn't fit the description of any normal beast. Nearby, a wounded soldier begs his captain to leave them behind and save himself using his Tier 9 strength. The soldier insists the captain could easily break through the encirclement alone, while the rest of them are already lost. He argues that the captain is close to his second awakening and shouldn't die here, but the captain tells him to shut up. The captain declares that these are his men, and he refuses to lose face by abandoning them to save his own skin. He isn't the type to run, so he turns back to the swarming monsters and dares them to come at him. He calls them beasts and challenges them to a final battle, ready to face whatever comes next. His only wish now is to go out fighting and take as many of them down with him as possible. The soldiers watch in awe, asking their captain who this fierce newcomer is and how he can fight with such raw intensity. One of them even notes that he seems stronger than the captain himself, a comment that earns a sharp, annoyed grunt. The captain tells him to watch his mouth, though deep down, he knows that if he were that powerful, things would be different. They wouldn't be in such a pathetic mess, after all. Still, he wonders how someone so young can possess such strength. He begins to suspect that this man might be an inspection commissioner sent down from the high command. Only a commissioner would have this kind of power. He approaches, asking if everyone is all right. The captain, Su Chu of the Northern City State Army's 3rd Battalion, formally greets the man he assumes is the commissioner. Li Xiang is confused, wondering what on earth an inspection commissioner is supposed to be. His companion laughs, telling Su Chu he's got it all wrong. This is Li Xiang, a captain from the 3rd Battalion. He explains that Li Xiang is the one everyone at the command centers has been talking about lately. Su Chu realizes with a shock that this is the newly discovered genius he had heard rumors about. His comrade adds that he isn't just a genius, he's actually the acting commander of the entire 3rd Battalion. And after this battle, his rank is likely to climb even higher. To be honest, his rise has been nothing short of meteoric. He jokes that by the next time they meet, they might both have to address him as their superior officer. Li Xiang smiles, telling them they must be joking. If that day comes, he says there is only one thing he wants to be called. He would much rather they simply call him a comrade in arms, which, naturally, is a sentiment they can all get behind. Su Chu lets out a hearty laugh at the word comrade. If that's the case, he sees no reason to hold back. He suggests they head back into the fray together to slay more enemies. And so, they move out as one. We see that after a full day of brutal slaughter, the beast tide is finally pushed back. It was a long day, to say the least. Li Xiang reflects on how he was pulled into the army immediately after his first awakening, and his family still has no idea. Li Xiang wonders if his mother will even be able to accept the news that he has joined the army. As her only son, he knows she worries. Fortunately, after his awakening, he can use a face-altering pill. It allows him to maintain a normal appearance, but returning home looking like this would surely raise questions. He decides it's best to keep his military service a secret for now, at least until she is better prepared. He needs to give her time to adjust. Just then, a soldier knocks and enters, addressing him as captain. He asks if Li Xiang will attend the victory banquet tonight, but Li Xiang politely declines the invitation. He explains that he needs to head home first. His subordinate nods, wishing the captain a safe journey. Later, we see Li Xiang with his mother, who jokes that even a stingy person like him is finally spending money. She asks why he suddenly brought her to such a fancy restaurant, but then remembers it was actually Annie Deng Mei. Deng Mei's son joined the city defense force, and she invited all the old neighbors to dinner to celebrate. She tells him to hurry, as everyone is already waiting in the private room, which, naturally, means they are late. As they enter, the neighbors greet his mother, Xiuyan, relieved that she has finally arrived. They usher them in, commenting on how handsome and talented Li Xiang, or Xiao Xiao, as they call him, has become. Li Xiang politely greets Annie Deng Mei, while his mother warmly calls her sister Mei. The neighbors praise Deng Mei, saying her son, Xiaoqiu, is truly successful since the defense force is so hard to join. It isn't just the danger, the failure rate for applicants is notoriously high. To be honest, it's quite an achievement. They remark that Xiaoqiu was always special, though Deng Mei modestly claims he is just an ordinary boy. She says she only hopes he can make a small contribution to their city, Yangcheng. The boy has certainly been working hard, and apparently, he even distinguished himself in a recent conflict. The army even gave him a formal reward for his service, much to the pride of everyone at the table. One of the neighbors turns to Xiuyan and asks what her son, Li Xiang, is currently doing for a living. They suggest that perhaps it is time for him to consider joining the army as well. Xiuyan calmly replies that everyone has their own path, and whatever her child chooses to do is his own business. The others chime in, noting that the city defense force isn't exactly easy to get into, which, of course, is an understatement. Li Xiang quietly asks his mother if she wants him to join, but she just calls him a silly child and says she wants nothing of the sort. Deep down, her only wish is for him to be safe, peaceful, and healthy. To her, that is better than anything else, as she believes going to such places is simply too dangerous. Li Xiang realizes he was right to keep his military service a secret. If she knew he had already been to the battlefield, she would likely be worried to death. And who could blame her, really? Deng Mei speaks up, telling Xiuyan that she shouldn't look at it that way. She insists that joining the army naturally comes with its own set of great advantages. She proudly mentions her son, Xiaoqiu, who has recently joined the 3rd Battalion of the City Defense Force. Apparently, his captain performed heroically in the last battle, earning the highest honors. She believes that by following such a leader, her son's future will be absolutely limitless. She cuts her story short as Xiaoqiu arrives, announcing that her son from the 3rd Battalion is finally here. Li Xiang pauses, remembering that the boy had mentioned serving in the North City Defense Zone. He realizes that the 3rd Battalion in that specific zone consists entirely of his own men. Xiaoqiu enters the room, and the neighbors remark on how different and sharp he looks in his uniform. They praise his spirited appearance, calling him the true pride of their old neighborhood. Li Xiang watches him, realizing the boy really is one of his soldiers. It is a small world, indeed. Deng Mei beams with pride, exclaiming how incredible it is to have such a chance meeting right here. She introduces her son, Lin Chu, and then turns to him to introduce Li Xiang. She reminds Lin Chu that they had actually met when they were children, though Li Xiang seems to be deep in thought. Lin Chu finds the name oddly familiar, noting to himself that the new battalion commander shares that exact same name. He offers a polite greeting, while silently telling himself that he must be losing his mind to even make the connection. After all, the new commander is a powerhouse capable of slaying second-level monsters, not a recent high school graduate. Deng Mei turns back to Xiuyan, pointing out that since Li Xiang has graduated, he really needs a career path. She suggests that Lin Chu could perhaps put in a good word for him, a suggestion the neighbors find quite reasonable. The others agree, remarking that a man truly needs to go out and build a career for himself. They note how lucky it is that Lin Chu has the ability and the will to help out someone from his own neighborhood. It is the kind of opportunity many people would beg for, yet Lin Chu seems a bit overwhelmed by the expectation. He knows the city defense force isn't a place just anyone can enter, and his mother is making some very big promises. To be honest, she hadn't even stopped to ask if her son actually had the influence to pull such strings. Lin Chu turns to his colleague, Brother Chung, asking how the victory banquet went and what their new captain actually looks like. Chung explains that the captain didn't attend, so he hasn't seen him in person, but the commander sent over a photo. He remarks that the man in the photo is incredibly young, shockingly so, in fact. Compared to such a prodigy, Chung feels as though he has accomplished nothing in his own life, which is a bit dramatic. As Lin Chu looks at the image on the phone, a strange sense of recognition begins to wash over him. The realization hits him like a physical blow. His legendary captain is indeed the man standing right in front of him. Deng Mei asks her son if something is wrong, but he can only stammer out that he is fine, despite his obvious shock. Lin Chu realizes that since he is wearing the badge of the 3rd Battalion, the captain must have recognized him immediately. Yet, the captain hasn't acknowledged him, leading Lin Chu to wonder if he is simply trying to keep his identity a secret from Aunt Xiuyan. Deng Mei continues her sales pitch, insisting that Xiuyan really needs to give this career opportunity some serious thought. She adds that if Li Xiang joins the city defense force, her son Lin Chu would be there to look after him. The irony of the situation isn't lost on Lin Chu, who silently begs his mother to stop before she makes things any more awkward. Li Xiang speaks up, politely thanking Aunt Deng Mei for her kindness, while gently declining the offer. He points out that the city defense force isn't exactly easy to join, and he wouldn't want to trouble Captain Lin. He offers a toast to Lin Chu instead, congratulating him on his successful career in the military. Lin Chu, looking visibly shaken, can only mutter that he doesn't deserve such a gesture from him. Li Xiang eventually announces that he's finished his meal and excuses himself to head to the restroom. Seizing the opportunity for a private word, Lin Chu quickly stands up and follows right behind him. Once they are alone, Lin Chu stands at attention, formally greeting his captain and confirming that he has indeed been recognized. He explains that while he didn't realize it at first, Commander Su had shown everyone the captain's photo at the victory banquet. He begs for forgiveness for his earlier lack of decorum, though Li Xiang assures him it's really not a big deal. Li Xiang explains that he is just visiting home and has no desire to draw unnecessary attention to himself. More importantly, he doesn't want his mother to worry about the dangers of him being in the city defense force. He asks Lin Chu to keep this a secret, a request to which the young soldier immediately and respectfully agrees. Lin Chu is left in awe, thinking about how this man single-handedly took down dozens of evolved beasts. Even after slaying several second-level monsters, Li Xiang chooses to remain humble and keep a low profile. To Lin Chu, this level of modesty is nothing short of legendary, a true role model for any soldier to follow. We see Li Xiang reflecting on his mother's fears. He knows she worries about his safety and dreads him following in his father's footsteps. Fighting evolved beasts means living a life where tomorrow is never guaranteed, but in a world this chaotic, someone has to step up. He believes someone must always be at the front to guard the peace, and since he has become an evolved, he feels he has no choice. It is a heavy responsibility, one he accepts as he prepares to leave, telling his mother to take care and that he loves her. To be honest, saying goodbye to his mother, Xiuyan, never gets any easier for him. We transition to the training grounds where Lao Di is waving the white flag, begging the captain to stop the sparring match. Li Xiang, ever the perfectionist, reminds him that despite his rank, he's still a newcomer who needs the practice. Lao Di, however, is reconsidering his life choices. If he had known the captain was this powerful, he never would have agreed to this. He desperately searches for an escape plan, and, as if on cue, he suddenly finds a way to bow out gracefully. He pretends to take an urgent call, telling the captain that something has come up and he simply must leave immediately. He promises to finish their duel another time, which, naturally, is a next time he hopes will never actually come. When Li Xiang asks if anyone else is brave enough to step up, a seasoned warrior named Lao Ku decides to take the challenge. Li Xiang simply nods, ready to see what this new opponent can bring to the table. Lao Ku warns the young captain that he won't be holding back this time, as he prepares to strike for the second time. We learn that during this stage of cultivation, most practitioners focus on their internal chi rather than external defense. They often neglect the refinement of the divine stone, leaving their physical forms somewhat vulnerable. But Lao Ku is different. He has used the divine stone to forge a body that is as tough as iron. He tells Li Xiang that he won't be easily hurt, so the young man should stop holding back and give it everything he's got. Li Xiang smiles, noting that if those are the rules, he is more than happy to oblige. With a sudden burst of energy, he prepares to unleash a powerful strike known as the Mountain Sunderer. Lao Ke gasps for air, asking Li Xiang if he's alright or if he was actually trying to kill him just now. Li Xiang looks back, slightly confused, reminding him that he was only following orders to give it his all, though he hadn't even reached full power yet. In fact, he still has several techniques he hasn't even attempted to use in this match. Lao Ku can hardly believe his ears. If a partial strike nearly ended him, he dreads to think what a full power attack would do. He begins to wonder which of them is truly rank 2, as the young man's strength is simply beyond common sense. The other soldiers quickly back away, suggesting that if anyone else is curious, they should step down and try it themselves. One of them insists he's just a desk worker and has no intention of looking for trouble, especially since his strength is far below the captain's. He admits that if the veterans can't handle it, he certainly can't, feeling quite intimidated by the display of power. The captain jokingly tells them to get lost and head back to their stations with the second company. Li Xiang reflects that sparring with allies is a completely different world compared to hunting beasts, especially regarding his Taiji sword progress. He notes that he is still 1% away from a full unlock, and he wonders if there are any challenges left for him. He finds himself questioning if there are any live beasts remaining within the base for him to practice on. Meanwhile, we shift to a laboratory where an assistant informs Professor Su that the bloodthirsty Wolf King's blood remains active for 72 hours. However, they have discovered that the cells and human genes are highly repulsive to one another. Professor Su notes that this is normal, as the Wolf King is a rank 2 beast, and merging such genes is never an easy task. To be honest, the difficulty of the procedure is exactly what makes their research so vital. The assistant remarks that it has been quite a long time since they last had the opportunity to study a rank 2 specimen. Rank 2 beasts are notoriously difficult to deal with, let alone kill, which makes this sample a rare treasure. He asks the professor which high-ranking commander in Yangzhou was responsible for such an impressive hunt. The professor smiles, revealing that this beast wasn't taken down by a commander at all, but by someone far more unexpected. The professor explains that the hero in question is actually a classmate of the assistant's, someone he likely knows well. Yesterday, over 300 students from their second high school underwent awakening, and one boy was personally recruited by Commander Su. He was brought into the North City Defense Zone, and it was there, during yesterday's Beast Tide, that he accomplished the impossible. He killed the bloodthirsty Wolf King, a feat the assistant finds impossible for a warrior who has only just awakened. He wonders how a novice could possibly take down a rank 2 beast, a question that, to be honest, seems perfectly reasonable. The professor admits he didn't believe it at first either, until the command center released the official notice this morning. That young man didn't just slay a rank 2 Wolf King, he also slaughtered nearly 30 rank 1 ferocious beasts single-handedly. Suddenly, an aide interrupts, mentioning that people from the 3rd Battalion have arrived and Director Zhao wants Professor Su to receive them. The professor is clearly annoyed, reminding them that he explicitly asked not to be disturbed by such administrative matters. The aide offers to find someone else for the task, but the professor stops him, suddenly curious about who exactly has arrived. We see that these are all rank 2 beasts captured on the battlefield, brought to the lab for research after their cores were removed. Li Xiang observes the collection, noting that there are quite a few beasts here, and all of them are rank 2 specimens. Rank 2 beasts are difficult enough to kill, let alone capture alive, which is a rare sight indeed. Yangzhou City paid a heavy price to imprison these creatures, and as a result, they are never lent out to outsiders. Li Xiang realizes there may be no other way, though he insists he doesn't need many, just a few would suffice for his needs. The official considers this, suggesting that while it isn't strictly impossible, it is certainly highly irregular. He demands a reason, asking why on earth he should hand over such valuable assets to a young man he barely knows. Li Xiang remains calm, preparing to offer a justification that will satisfy the official skepticism. He knows that in this world, strength and logic are the only currencies that truly matter when making such a request. The official repeats his challenge, wondering what could possibly justify giving away live, dangerous beasts for a student's practice. Li Xiang hadn't expected that capturing live beasts would be quite this difficult, but he was still a few points short of the energy he needed. As long as he could unlock the next stage, he felt that paying a small price now would be well worth it in the end. He makes a bold offer. Give him 5 beasts now, and when the next wave of injuries hits, he will return the favor twofold. The official considers the deal for a moment before nodding. It's a bargain for rank 2 specimens, and the deal is struck. We shift our focus to the fire department defense zone, where intelligence was bought with the lives of dozens of scouts. The commander asks the room if anyone has anything to say about the report, calling the perpetrator an absolute scoundrel. He accuses the person of essentially strategizing for the beasts, acting as nothing less than a traitor to their own kind. Yesterday, the north, south, east, and west defense zones were all hit simultaneously by the beast tide. The impact was nearly synchronized, a coordinated strike that left the defenders reeling across all fronts. This is a situation that has never occurred before, and even then, he began to suspect that something was deeply wrong. He repeats his disbelief, insisting that such a situation should have been impossible under any normal circumstances. It simply shouldn't be happening. The sheer impossibility of it all had him questioning everything from the very start. The question remains, is this merely a series of unfortunate coincidences, or was it all planned long ago? The commander then presents a new piece of intelligence, asking everyone present to help him take a closer look. They observe a figure from the North Defense Zone, wondering if he might be one of the 4 battalion commanders stationed there. And yet, he doesn't recognize the man. This person looks far too young, perhaps a new arrival they haven't met yet. The commander tells them not to rush and to keep watching. The most interesting part is yet to come. To be able to identify a shape-shifting beast, one would need to be at least a rank 2 expert or higher. This young man is not only physically powerful, but he can also identify a disguised monster with a single glance. In all of Yangzhou City, there are likely fewer than 10 people capable of such a feat, leaving them to wonder, who is this man? The commander reveals that this is a name they have all heard before. He is Li Xiang. We learn that he was recently recruited by the North Defense Zone and has already made a name for himself in Shouchao. He achieved great military honors there, though Su Wenqing's sudden boasting prompts a rather annoyed reaction from the others. They argue that now is the time to discuss the crisis, not a time for showing off, which, to be fair, is a valid point. The commander clarifies that he wants them to look at the beast itself, having carefully studied the after-action report. It turns out that this particular monster, which had taken on a human form, was never actually killed. A realization dawns on the room. He suspects that the man in this video might have a connection to that woman. The theory is simple, yet chilling. Perhaps the two are actually the same beast in different disguises. It is entirely possible that this is just another layer of the creature's shape-shifting ability. The commander orders Ma Ziyuan to go and bring Li Xiang in for questioning, and the soldier quickly complies. Meanwhile, we see Li Xiang training. His movements are fluid, as if his blood flows in harmony with the heavens. This is the Taiji sword, a technique of balance and immense power. He feels his strength has grown enough to handle most beasts, and now, with the Taiji sword unlocked, he is even more formidable. As long as he avoids a rank 3 encounter, he is confident that no rank 2 beast can truly threaten him anymore. He stops his training when he notices the visitor, asking Captain Ma what brings him there so suddenly. Ma can only stare in disbelief, thinking to himself that this kid is an absolute monster. It has only been a few days. Yet here he is, standing alone and perfectly capable of taking on 5 rank 2 beasts by himself. The captain finds himself wondering if Li Xiang is even human at all, given such terrifying progress. He snaps out of it and delivers the message. Commander Su has requested his presence in the briefing room immediately. It seems there are a few specific details regarding his recent battle report that they need to clear up. Li Xiang agrees without a second thought, telling the captain he just needs a moment to pack up before heading over. As they walk, Ma Ziyuan reminds him not to forget the promise he made, a small matter of personal interest, perhaps. Li Xiang assures him he hasn't forgotten, though he finds the situation a bit strange. He notes that Professor Su generally shows very little interest in matters outside of her specific research. He wonders why, of all people, she would want to host a private meeting with him today. Upon entering the room, Li Xiang offers a respectful greeting to the assembled commanders. One of them notices his attire and asks if he has just achieved another breakthrough in his training. He explains that his connection with his ancestors has deepened, leading him to request a new weapon from the armory. The commanders are stunned by his rapid progress, thinking to themselves that this boy is truly a rare talent. There is a lingering regret that he belongs to the north. They wish they had tried harder to recruit him for the east. The commander gets straight to the point, asking Li Xiang to look at a report regarding the beast he repelled yesterday. He asks for the specific details of the encounter with the monster that had taken on a human form. Li Xiang obliges, explaining that the beast's strength was roughly at the level of a rank 2, 5-star creature. It possessed a regenerative ability similar to a blood python, leading him to believe he only destroyed a clone. He suspects the true body remained underground, using earth-tunneling techniques to project clones onto the battlefield. We see him point out how the creature's limbs, and perhaps its entire body, could shift and change shape at will. It could harden its form for offense, and its bodily fluids carried a certain level of toxicity, a nasty combination, to be sure. The commander notes that a clone usually only possesses a third of the original's power, which changes the math significantly. If Li Xiang's assessment is correct, the main body of this beast must be at the peak of rank 2, 9-star. It might even be higher than that, a realization that makes the atmosphere in the room noticeably heavier. The commander asks the question weighing on everyone's mind. Is this beast the same as the powerful figure seen in the footage? Li Xiang admits he can't be certain without meeting the person in the video, but he notes one chilling detail. The creature is capable of leading and even training a massive horde of beasts, many of which are already at rank 2. Regardless of whether it's the same entity, its strength is at the very peak of rank 2, at the absolute minimum. We see a grim realization settle over the room. Their true enemy might very well be a rank 3 threat. The commander sighs, stating that Yang City is no longer safe and that they must begin making arrangements for an evacuation. He reflects on how the world is becoming increasingly restless, a bit of an understatement, to be honest. Turning to the young man, he admits he isn't quite sure what to say to Captain Li Xiang at a time like this. He wonders if the boy is lucky or cursed, having reached the level of a grandmaster right after high school graduation. On his very first day joining the city's defense forces, he was forced to face a surging tide of monsters. And now, not long after that initial battle, he is caught in the middle of this even greater crisis. The commander asks him directly if he feels any fear, given the overwhelming weight of the situation. Li Xiang simply replies that there is nothing to fear. If they dare to come, he will just kill them all. Kill them all, a bold statement that leaves the room in a momentary, stunned silence. It sounded simple enough when he said it, of course. Suddenly, the doors burst open as he orders Captain Ma to immediately notify the high command of a new development. The beast tide has returned, a revelation that catches everyone off guard. What, already? He demands to know how many people have been evacuated from Yang City, only to learn it is barely a tenth of the population. The tide is moving much faster than any of them had anticipated, leaving them precious little time to react. Some people haven't even been notified yet, and he curses the beasts for their relentless, calculated timing. It was becoming clear that this wasn't a random attack. The enemy was launching a carefully planned offensive. He decided to let them breach the outer walls, waiting until the tide entered the optimal strike zone. The order was simple. Once they were in range, they would immediately commence full-scale fire coverage. A frantic report came in. There were simply too many beasts, and many had already broken through the outer perimeter. With the monsters nearing the walls, the soldiers asked if they should prepare for the grim reality of close-quarters combat. He refused, knowing it was far too dangerous below and fearing his own men would be caught in the crossfire. But the captain argued that if the beasts scaled the walls, the artillery would be useless. They couldn't wait any longer. They were soldiers, after all, and were perfectly willing to sacrifice themselves to protect the city's final defense. The beasts had even learned to coordinate their movements, a terrifying development that made the captain plead for orders. He warned that without a bloody stand, the wall would fall, but Li Xiang remained calm, insisting that he was there. To be honest, the captain felt his words were useless in the face of such a massive, looming threat. We see that on the walls, powerful ancestral warriors were standing ready, their presence a beacon of hope. He told the civilians that with these soldiers present, there was no need for them to worry about the front lines. Their only job was to study hard, so that even if they awakened their ancestral bloodlines later, they would be ready. Even as powerful warriors, they would need to work diligently to contribute to the city's survival. The goal was to never be a burden, and then, the command was given to fire the main cannon. The main cannon roared to life, its power so awe-inspiring that the young students wished they could be up there fighting too. Its destructive force could reach over 100 kilometers. Normally, a beast tide wouldn't require such a weapon. This left everyone wondering just how massive the scale of this particular monster tide truly was. Meanwhile, Shillian noticed the tremors shaking their vehicle were far more violent than anything she had felt before. She asked nervously if anything bad could really happen, especially with the city defense force standing guard. Her companion assured her everything would be fine, though she admitted she regretted letting young Xiaochu join the ranks. She confessed to Sister Deng that if anything happened to him, she simply wouldn't know how to go on living. Sister Deng felt that was a bit much, noting that most of their children couldn't even qualify for the force. She reminded her that one can't simply enjoy the benefits of the defense force and then complain when duty calls. Regretting it only when the war starts seemed unfair, but the mother insisted that wasn't what she meant at all. She was simply worried about what kind of dangerous work that stubborn boy was actually doing at a time like this. He hadn't even sent his mother a single message, leaving her to desperately pray that he stayed out of harm's way. Back at the front, the soldiers warned their captain that the number of beasts being flung onto the walls was increasing. They feared that if this continued, they wouldn't die by claws, but would be crushed under the sheer weight of the numbers. If that happened, the fall of the city walls would be an absolute certainty. The soldiers watched in disbelief as their captain, in the middle of this chaos, calmly reached for a bottle of liquor. Jian Xing tried to intervene, insisting that drinking wasn't the solution and that they needed a real plan immediately. He pleaded with the captain to put the bottle away, repeating that they couldn't simply let the situation spiral out of control. He argued that the captain had to stop those giant beasts from being tossed over if they wanted to stabilize the line. The captain simply told him to join him, suggesting they drink this bottle together to toast to their own journey. It was clear to Jian Xing then that the captain was preparing himself for a final, suicidal stand. The captain's resolve was firm. If he was to die, he would do so without regret, even if there was no coming back. Meanwhile, the report reached the command center that their ammunition reserves were dangerously close to running dry. Despite the main cannon firing over a dozen rounds, it seemed to have had almost no effect on the advancing tide. These beasts seemed to be endless, appearing one after another as if they could never be fully eradicated. There was no point in worrying about conserving ammunition for later, as they barely had enough to survive this moment. The order was acknowledged with a grim sense of finality. We see the command center falling into chaos as reports come in that the beasts are bypassing the main defenses. If they didn't act, they would be crushed by the very artillery meant to protect them as the enemy swarmed the walls. The sheer number of creatures being flung onto the battlements had completely disrupted the strategies of the various captains. Losses were mounting rapidly, and Captain Shuchu, seeing no other choice, had already abandoned his defensive position. He led his men in a desperate charge directly into the fray, hoping to stop the beasts from being launched. It was a reckless move, practically a suicide mission, and one had to wonder how many other captains would follow suit. Sure enough, he wasn't the only one choosing to take the fight to the enemy as the village defense lines began to crumble. Aside from Captain Ma and Captain Luo, every other leader had joined the brutal melee on the ground. The situation was dire. Several captains had already fallen in battle, their lives cut short in the carnage. It seemed only a matter of time before the entire army was wiped out, a realization that hung heavy in the air. The order was given to notify the logistics team to bring up every remaining scrap of supplies they had left. They were preparing for a final stand, a moment where everything would be decided at the city gates. Captain Weiwu rallied his men, urging them to follow him and slaughter every last one of the beasts. He roared for the enemy to die, but the news only grew worse as other sectors began to buckle under the pressure. The areas they were responsible for were failing, and Captain Luohang's unit had just sent out a desperate plea for help. It didn't make sense. Their forces shouldn't have been overwhelmed quite this quickly, even under these conditions. Deep down, the captain knew this battle had become far more unpredictable than anyone had ever imagined. The beasts were coordinating with such precision that they caught everyone off guard. Without your help, things would have been much worse. We would have been slaughtered, and this entire battle would have stood no chance of success. Even our own captain was taken by surprise by the sudden shift in the enemy's tactics, which, to be honest, was a terrifying sign. Our position is barely holding, and we can't afford to lose the other sectors where the pressure is even greater. It seems the beasts are relentless, but he was determined to see for himself just how far they could push. His men pleaded with him not to be impulsive, questioning if these creatures were truly endless. He told them to hold their positions and leave the rest to him. A bold claim, certainly, but he meant every word. He ordered all the warriors to take up their weapons and follow his lead. They were going down to the front lines to slay the enemy directly. Captain Chu promised to tear an opening in the enemy ranks to pave the way. The goal was to break the beast's formation and stop them from launching any more projectiles into the city. The response was simple and immediate. There would be no problem. He roared for the onslaught to stop, throwing himself into the path of the charging monsters. We see him checking on Captain Shuchu, asking if he was still standing after that brutal exchange. Shuchu replied that he was fine for now, though he couldn't say the same for what was coming next. Captain Li turned to the two of them, deciding that there was no more time for idle talk. He declared that he would take care of the Banshinyuan beasts himself. He told the others to handle the rest, leaving them wondering if he had truly lost his mind. Captain Li was urged to come back, as facing so many second-rank beasts alone was surely a death sentence. But he hadn't had a chance to properly test his Taiji sword since unlocking it, and he decided that now was the perfect time. He decided to use this pack of second-rank beasts as a bit of target practice for his new skills. The urgency was palpable. They had to move faster, knowing they couldn't let the North City fall even if it cost them their lives. We see them desperately hoping the defenses would hold, calling out for Xianzhu and the others to stand firm. They needed to hold the line at all costs, but then, something happened that made them stop in their tracks. Weren't the reports saying the situation was critical and that several sectors were on the verge of being overrun? Shen Hun pointed toward the distance, his voice trailing off as he processed the scene before them. He stared at the carnage in disbelief, wondering if all of this was truly the work of just one man. Captain Su couldn't help but ask if he was even human anymore, which, to be fair, was a perfectly valid question. He reminded them that he'd saved their lives twice now, so perhaps the name-calling was a bit uncalled for. Captain Su clarified that it wasn't an insult, but he desperately needed Captain Li to tell them the honest truth. They found it hard to believe he was only a first-rank awakened, because no ordinary warrior of that level could face a volley of arrows and then instantly wipe out hundreds of second-rank beasts. It was a feat that left them both questioning everything they thought they knew about the limits of power. To see hundreds of high-level monsters vanish in a single moment was, quite frankly, terrifying to behold. To be honest, if he had claimed to be at the peak of the second rank, they would have believed him instantly. He maintained that he was indeed first rank, joking that perhaps his ancestors were just a bit more impressive than theirs. It was a humble way to brush off a miracle, but the battlefield rarely allows for long conversations. The nightmare wasn't over yet, as an even larger wave of beasts began to emerge, dwarfing the previous onslaught. It seemed as though their luck had finally run out, and they truly wouldn't be making it out of this one. He knew that while his strength had grown immensely, that last display of power had come at a heavy cost. He realized that most of his spiritual energy had been drained, and looking at the weary group around him, he feared that every single one of them might end up losing their lives right here. He shouted for them to stop dazing and follow him back into the fray. He told his comrades not to hesitate any longer, for their main force had finally arrived. With a collective roar, they charged forward to kill. But deep down, he knew this wasn't sustainable. Sooner or later, the beasts would simply wear them down to nothing. He remembered that Zhang's alchemy was legendary, and if he could just unlock those pills, he could use them to restore their physical strength and spiritual aura, which, to be honest, was their only real hope. He ordered the captain to retreat to the wall immediately and notified Dishabeo to prepare the necessary items. They needed those supplies delivered to the battlefield at the highest possible speed. We see him execute the Taiji sword technique, pushing his focus to the absolute limit. And here, Zhang Sanfeng's synchronization reached 90%. This breakthrough finally unlocked the profound skill known as the Way of the Alchemist. It was the art of refining essence into qi, and then refining that qi into the very spirit itself. By refining the spirit into emptiness and merging that void with the Tao, one could extract the essence of all things. By fusing that essence into a single form, a divine pill is born. He checked to see if the others were all right, only to be met with frustrated curses. These rhinos weren't just possessed of immense strength, they were walking fortresses. Their natural armor was completely impenetrable to blades and spears, making them nearly impossible to control. He felt his own strength fading, cursing the fact that his blood and qi were almost completely spent. If they didn't die at the hands of the beasts, they were likely to collapse from sheer exhaustion anyway. He asked if they could hold on, suggesting they leave the defense to him while they retreated to recover. But they weren't interested in resting. They were ready to die for their country right then and there. They were determined to defend the red courtyard of Su Shao, and today was the day to prove it. The soldiers cheered for their captain, urging him to give it everything he had left. He called out to Jinghui, asking to borrow the leaf fire, the sacred flame needed for his next move. Captain Lu watched in confusion, wondering what the boy was doing with Jinghui's eternal flame. He had never heard of anyone attempting to use the leaf fire in such a strange manner before. To be honest, no one even knew he had the ability to control flames in the first place. Then it clicked. He remembered that Zhang Sanfeng was a master of alchemy. He was refining pills. While the battle raged, he focused on the Tao, where all things in the universe begin and never end. He channeled the principle where 1 creates 2, 2 creates 3, and 3 creates all things. And then, with a final surge of will, he commanded all those elements to return to 1. The energy surged as he completed the process, calling out to Kenneth to take the result. He tossed the newly formed pills toward his comrades, telling them to catch. One soldier felt a terrifying surge of power, claiming he felt strong enough to take on 10 enemies at once. The quality of the medicine was staggering, and we see their courage begin to restore instantly. Even their cultivation levels began to rise. Such was the legendary power of Zhang's alchemy. Seeing that their captain had already charged back in, the others rallied to join the fight. With renewed spirits and restored strength, they let out a final cry and moved in for the kill. Zhang looked out over the battlefield and decided that this war had gone on long enough. With a single, devastating command, he ordered the enemy to be extinguished. The tide turned instantly. The beasts were retreating, and the soldiers realized with a shock that they had won. One soldier collapsed, whispering to himself in disbelief that he had actually survived the slaughter. We see the dust begin to settle over the northern city, but the peace is short-lived. Zhang noted that he could finally proceed with the second reorganization, though he wondered what new tasks awaited him. Captain Su approached him, admitting the boy had full-on surprised him and was the reason the city still stood. Zhang remained humble, telling the commander he was exaggerating and that this victory belonged to everyone's sacrifice. He refused to take all the credit, which, to be honest, was a bit too modest given the circumstances. Su laughed, pointing out that without Zhang, all several hundred of them would have died right there. The captain made it clear, his very life now belonged to the young alchemist who had saved them. The others agreed, telling Captain Li that they all owed him a debt that could never truly be repaid. A solemn bond was formed in that moment, a contract of brotherhood that needed no words. They stood together as comrades in arms, bound by the blood they had shed on the same soil. But then, the atmosphere shifted as a scout rushed in, shouting that something was terribly wrong. The eastern wall had fallen, a revelation that struck the survivors like a physical blow. The scout panicked, claiming there were simply too many enemies for their small group to hold back. He begged them to flee before it was too late, but Su silenced him, reminding him that Yang City lay right behind them. Behind them were thousands of unarmed civilians. If the soldiers retreated, those people would have nowhere to go. Nie Zhuiying stepped forward, declaring that even as a woman, she knew that for a true warrior, death was the only honorable path. She declared that they would rather die than retreat, shouting for the beasts to try and enter Yang City if they dared. If they wanted to pass, they would have to step over her cold, dead body first. Suddenly, Li Xiang appeared, prompting the others to ask why he was there since the nest in the north had been cleared. He explained that Commander Su sent him as reinforcements after hearing the east fell, but Nie Zhuiying called it complete nonsense. She demanded to know why they would send a mere commoner as reinforcement instead of someone else. To her, his presence was useless. It was as if he had been sent there specifically to die, which seemed a bit harsh. Li Xiang looked at her, hurt, asking if he really appeared that incompetent in her eyes. Ignoring his plea, she ordered her men to take him away immediately, despite his protests. He struggled as they grabbed him, questioning how Nie Zhuiying and the others could treat him this way. He begged them to let him go, insisting that he had only come there to help them hold the line. Nie Zhuiying told him to shut up, cursing that bastard Ruan Cheng under her breath. She was furious that Ruan would send such talent to a death trap, swearing that if she survived this, she would personally demand an explanation for this reckless decision. Li Xiang sighed, repeating that he was only there to help, and asked if she could finally explain the situation. He needed to know how the eastern sector had fallen and what had gone so terribly wrong. We see him take down a dozen second-level beasts with a single arrow, a feat even Nie Zhuiying couldn't match. She wondered what kind of monster the boy really was, then explained that the local captain had been ambushed. She suspected a man in black was behind the attack. Once the captain fell, chaos naturally followed. With the leadership gone, many beasts managed to slip into the city, forcing the eastern sector to retreat. She looked at the carnage, unable to believe that these monsters were being led by someone like that. We see the sheer scale of the threat as the beasts continue their relentless assault on the city. The eastern sector had no choice but to divert their men to clear the beasts inside, a grim reality, indeed. Li Xiang realized things were far more complex than he imagined, and asked Nie Zhuiying where the red weapons were stored. She told him they were kept in the city lord's mansion, naturally wondering why he would even ask such a thing. His answer was simple yet bold. He intended to undergo a second awakening process immediately. Meanwhile, a frantic subordinate warned his lady that the east wall had breached and the beasts would soon arrive. It seemed Yang City was truly lost, but she had heard enough and refused to listen to any more despair. She stood firm, declaring she wouldn't leave, even as her attendant begged her to reconsider for her own safety. The city lord had just called via satellite phone, desperate for his daughter to be taken to safety. Since he couldn't return while the city faced destruction, he entrusted her protection to those remaining. She felt it was her duty to fulfill the responsibilities of a city lord in his stead, no matter the cost. She urged her attendant to leave, handing over her years of research to ensure it wouldn't be lost. It was a final request, a hope that they might survive the journey to the Dongzhou prefecture. Suddenly, Li Xiang arrived and recognized Professor Su, asking if they were indeed at the city lord's mansion. Without wasting a moment, he asked her exactly where the red weapons for the awakening were being kept. She was shocked he had reached his peak so quickly, but led him toward the secret chamber nonetheless. The attendant could only watch in silence as the young man and the lady hurried toward the vault. They reached the storage area, where she acknowledged his past contributions to their cause. She asked if he was truly certain about attempting a second awakening under these dire circumstances. He knew there was no time to hesitate. Only through this power could he hope to stop the beast tide. And here we see it happening once again. Li Ji and Su Fu. Everything was unfolding exactly as Lu Zhongxiao had predicted. The second awakening was a descent into a lawless era, leaving him to wonder who he should choose this time. The thought echoed in his mind. I choose you. I choose you. I choose you. I choose you. Over and over, the decision weighed on him. I choose you. I choose you. I choose you. I choose you. He made his final choice. I choose you. I choose you. Do you choose Fa Hai? As the object of this awakening, he had selected the legendary Fa Hai, a figure who had stood guard alone for 10,000 years, waiting in the silence. Finally, the one destined to wield the 5 elements had arrived. Professor Su watched anxiously as he committed to the choice. I choose you. I choose you. The chant continued as he braced for the second awakening. I choose you. I choose you. This second process was 10 times more difficult than the first, and far more painful. To be honest, it was a miracle anyone survived it. The attendant worried if the boy could handle the awakening alone, but Professor Su felt certain he would. Though she didn't know him well, his bravery against the beast that killed her sister spoke volumes. She believed his inner strength would see him through this trial. You are Li Xiang, after all. She asked if he had succeeded, and he thanked her, noting the heavy burden he now carried. He promised that one day, he would return to the prefecture to properly repay the debt. Nearby, a child's voice cried out in the chaos. Mama, 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 mama. The desperate plea for a mother continued. Mama, 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 mama. In the midst of the destruction, the small voice didn't stop. Mama, 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 mama. The child's voice continued to ring out in the wreckage. Mama, 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 mama. Where are you? Please, don't hit me. The voice pleaded in a desperate, broken tone. The command was harsh and absolute. Stay on your knees. He wondered where he was, gripped by a sudden fear that urged him to wake up immediately. Things had changed, and now the master was to be replaced by the Buddha, the Lord Buddha. The title echoed through the space. Lord Buddha? A question that seemed to hang in the air. Lord Buddha? Again, the name was whispered in disbelief. Lord Buddha? It was as if the world itself was asking. Lord Buddha? The realization began to sink in. Lord Buddha? Could it truly be him? Lord Buddha? The name repeated like a mantra. Lord Buddha? Every shadow seemed to murmur the same thing. Lord Buddha? It was a title he never expected to hear. Lord Buddha? The confusion was palpable. Lord Buddha? A single thought dominated his mind. Lord Buddha? And once more, the question remained. Lord Buddha? The little one looked up with gratitude and whispered, "Thank you, big brother." We see the mother finally rush forward, crying out that she had found her little Xiao Guai at last. The fire within the stars was now as much a part of him as his own body. It is said that when humans lose themselves, even the gods lose their way. He felt a crushing sense of guilt, remembering that his mother was still in the hospital. He couldn't just think of his own escape. He had to go back, no matter the cost. We hear the people questioning why they are running when this place is their home. Where else could they go? They decided then to stay and help the Xingbang army. They were ready to fight those killers, and he was determined to join them. Others stepped forward too, even as the evil fire from the stars continued to consume everything outside.